we're doing a map review on DM-Fervor version 7. And we're starting out in this belt room. And the reason is because this belt room is perhaps the strongest area of the map. And the reason is because of the connectivity and the flow on the map. However, it's too powerful. There is an imbalance from this map due to the fact that there is very quick rotational power and access to the other areas of the map. And to showcase that is just doing this, simply this. And there's so many different movement options that you can apply. You can go from here to up here. You can go from just taking a slope dodge, you can wall run up here and get to here, or slope dodge up to here. Either way, in any way, that those are all very strong tools, and they all give you very quick access to wherever you want to go. So from here, let's go to vest. And when we go to vest, firstly, you can just crouch here. Just immediately a crouch, and it gives you a lot of contest power. As in, like, you can just come here because you have the belt. Once you pick up the belt, you have an 8 power for area control and armor control. People don't really want to fight you because you just picked the biggest armor in the game. And with just crouch alone, you are contesting the area, just the pathway to get to 100 armor, let alone the 100 armor itself. And you can sit here and kind of just do poking power. And yes, they can return it, but again, that isn't a trade-off that's going to favor them, especially because you get you have a very quick rotation. And if we think about from the rotation over there, as it is from that area, it's a bit weaker. And so it doesn't benefit them as much as it does us. And you can come up here and just, again, get that armor really quickly if you wanted to. But that's just the vest area. So let's go back to the belt area because there's more access rotational power. If you go back here, oops. Well, it doesn't matter. We can just rotate in here really quick. And now we have access to the 25 armor, 50 armor. Both locations you can just lock down just for your presence alone. Area control. A lot of these armors are just locked down from the simple presence of area control. What an issue is that from here, from belt, you can go. You just sit here for a little bit. In a real match, you can, if you establish control, you can just sit at belt room, hear where your opponent goes, and just quickly rotate, as my dogs bark, but quickly rotate to the upper area for vest, or rotate here really quickly and lock down 25 or 50 armor. So wherever your opponent goes, they are going to struggle to be able to pick up anything for free or be able to retaliate in any way possible because you're able to rotate really quickly. Now, what's funny is that as strong as this area is, the moment you start rotating inward, now you're kind of trapped in here. So once you're here, it's a longer rotation to go back around. You don't really have as many movement options. And if you want to go upward, it's a slower path. And again, not many movement options. So you're choke holding the point a lot. And it makes the map smaller innately because that area is so strong, yet over here it's so weak. So what happens is that it creates dead space. Like this back room, there's a lot of dead space here. There isn't really that much utility behind here because of how strong the rotation from belt to here is, or belt to the vest area. There isn't really much of a reason to get here. And this map plays a lot smaller than it should, and it has a lot of potential to be a lot bigger than it can be. And from there, we can really just branch off from there to include many more topics. Anything that you guys want to talk about?
Let's move on to actually trying to deal with making the map bigger. I mean, I watched the stream that Fio played on during the weekend, and one of the comments I saw from Flick was he expected the map to play a bit bigger. So at the moment, this probably is no bigger than a race or Echo in the way that you can rotate around, as Sass was saying. So if the intention was to make it a bigger map, I've got a few suggestions on how to do so. Now, we've just identified this area here is a choke, right? And unlike other maps where you want to control a big item, you usually do put it in a choke. That other area where the belt currently is, it's not really a choke because of all the ways out of it. So what would happen if the belt was sitting here? Well, that would mean that it would be sitting in an area that would be tricky to contest. If the other player had top control or rocket area, they would be able to keep an eye out on all the exits, so it would actually make the item a little bit more valuable than what it is at the moment. What do you guys think on that?
Well,
I'm with it, man.
if we had, yeah, when we move a bigger armor here, it makes the map bigger just by rotational power alone. It takes multiple dodges to rotate around the map. Now it's taking me a long time to rotate to wherever a vest is. Wherever this vest is, it takes longer. And to rotate it back around, it takes longer. And to rotate into this area, it'll take longer. So what happens is that when you put a bigger armor here, it makes the rotations longer, which then makes the map creates more utility for the map, so that you create more rotational power for the map.
Okay.
And
so if the belt is here, then we'd probably move the 50 armor down there. However, that means that the helmet's in the way. So we won't worry about the helmet for now. That can go into a different spot that we haven't thought about exactly where it needs to go. However, if we come back to this room here, right, let's put the 50 armor there. We still have a shock rifle and a pulse gun. So what would happen if we just take the pulse gun out, or the link gun, and move that down to where the current, I believe it's supposed to be the grenade launcher at the moment.
Yeah,
although I think weapon replace is currently removing it.
Yeah,
so
this should be a grenade launcher.
I think in the version 6 of this map, that was a link gun anyway. So once you move that there, then you've got a nice, with the combination of the 50 armor, then you've got a nice strong room. But you probably want to deal with some of the connectivity issues out of it. So Sess has thought about removing the jump pad below, and also the slope dodge out of the room. Sess, do you want to show how quickly it is to get out of the room?
Well, if I could do it right, I haven't practiced this map exactly, but I know with a little practice, I could just do that, and it's not hard to do. I'm just not polished.
So the wall run out.
Yeah, just a quick little wall run out, and I've done it many times, just not off the top of my head, and even that's pretty easy to do. And both are really fast and powerful rotational tools, and like it's not even just that. You could just do this right here, and then here you are. Just the helmet alone. I mean, right now as it is, like it's more beneficial to take the lower ground, but you can still dodge in, and it's still as fast. So there's a lot of connectivity issues, or not issues, but just connectivity to power with those rotational powers alone.
So the top route which you take here, if you notice when you exit out, is you don't have line of sight of where that item would be. So it's on the other side of the wall. So let's say if it was the belt, then you don't have an idea whether it's up or not. However, if you come from here, you're still going to know if it's up, I think. Have you got visual there? Maybe?
I mean, even if you don't have visual, like
you can still get to this area right here, though, quickly. Yeah. So my suggestion of dealing with that would be a door. And I don't even think it needs to be a slow opening door or whatnot. If you have a sound cue there that's going to trigger off, that's different from anywhere in the map, to quickly get to the rockets and have line of sight on what we would consider to be the belt from that area, you're going to have to trigger off a sound cue, which can be cut off if someone was up the top here or back up at where the bio rifle is at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I personally would prefer a slow moving door just because this is so quick and it's so much power. And
the issue with having a slow moving door is that it does break flow. it's just a nuisance. It's just something that could uh, there's when you build a map, you probably don't want to make things that's going to annoy the player because they will blame the map builder as opposed to their own to themselves making a mistake or whatnot. That's something that could infuriate a player. So I wouldn't suggest having it in as a general rule. But a fast moving door that is well, it the door's there to block line of sight when you're not there, and if you are there, it's going to trigger a sound cue. So as Sass pointed out in this room here, there's a number of ways in which you can utilize the map geometry to exit the room. One is this jump pad, and with the jump pad here, you can dodge off the corner if I wasn't blocking him, and get up to the shock rifle, like so. That's if you actually practice. But the other thing is, so we could take out the jump pad. I don't think the jump pad needs there. If you want to take the belt or a 50 armor, whatever happens to be there, you can simply run around the back, and it gives you a little bit of time, and it will delay moving to the next area. However, you can still use that slope dodge to bounce up to this area here, which, whilst as soon as you come up here, you don't have direct line of sight, but at one simple dodge, and you're looking directly at the armor there. So let's say if there was a belt there, right? That you don't want to be able to get into that position super quickly. So, what are your thoughts on that, Sass?
Yeah, like right here immediately you just get to upper ground. So it's and you have to cover. So like for a player like me that likes to utilize this kind of thing because I am a sniper based player, this is like my dream come true. I can just come here, peek, boom, boom. I get both lockdown area control because I can just immediately peek through at both, but I'm safe. I can just like rotate back in, and he can't do it. My opponent cannot do anything to me because he will have to commit to being here because is lower ground and that is for the belt, and he wants to commit to being there. He can hide behind that wall, but then I'm effectively just delaying everything, and I am being a linchpin and an annoyance. So he wants to commit to that area. So once he commits to the area, and let's say we're doing even poke, like I can immediately just rotate around, rotate out, and I'm safe. And it's a bit too strong. It creates an imbalance because the rotational power of the area itself. It doesn't matter what item you have here. Even if you just have 5 pads here, the rotational power is still too strong from upper ground and even the lower ground. So I would say that slope dodge just needs to get removed. That slope ramp, I guess, should just be removed because it just creates too many options to utilize and creates too many powers.
Right. So even if you don't take the slope dodge, you can still run up these set of stairs here and get yourself into a position here where you'd have an immediate exit through down into the 225 health bubble point. So what you probably want to use here is a door. And so talking with Sass about this, Sass wouldn't mind having a slow opening door, which means that you've got to, basically be standing at the door waiting for it to open. Even a slow moving door, right? Let's say it has a 5 to 10 second opening time. It still doesn't take too long to get through, and it's a hindrance to the player. It breaks flow, and it's something that because the player's getting held up with something as an item in the map, they will blame the level designer as thinking it's something that's stupid as opposed to I've done something stupid. But what a door can do is block line of sight temporarily when they're closed, and when it does open, it triggers off a sound cue. So it's a risk to go through that door.
Yeah.
So I know you wanted to hold it off, but I think that would break the map flow. The map actually flows quite nicely geometrically as it is. So you don't want to take that away, especially when if you have a hindrance here, then you also this exit here, if it's meant to stay as is. Any guesses to what the T means?
I'm assuming it.
Turn
I'm
attack.
gonna give it testing
Yes.
area. Maybe, I don't know. Still, if you don't want to trigger a sound cue, this area becomes a little bit more of a sneaky attack. Again, we're trying to create more utility of this back room because the map as it is has a lot of inward flow, as in a lot of the inward parts of the map have a lot of accessibility and connectivity, but you don't really utilize this back area ever. Like, there's not really a reason to come through this area. I mean, yes, there's vials, and yes, this would be what link gun in our proposed discussion, but even then, it's barely utilized. Like, it's not going to be a big part of the factor of the map, and we want to create more importance to this area because the issue with this map is that it can be a bit too clogged and a bit too small. Even though it actually has decent amount of space, this area right here is not being utilized enough to take advantage of the space that it could have. So I agree that, like, even if you just have a fast moving door that flows right open, you can just go through, it does create a sound cue, and it does create a bit of more of a balance in the map. I still think it would be maybe too strong, but that's something you'd have to play test and let time figure out as things go on. We can't really say that right now because we're just giving suggestions. And like a slow moving door may make this balanced in my mind, but maybe it'd be way too bad and like way too slow and like just be a problem more than it is a helpful solution. So that's just something to have a more of a flow, something you can think about more on your own. Our suggestions aren't end all be alls, just suggestions, ultimately.
Well, the other way to do it is actually go door and then an object sitting right here to block line of sight. But
Yeah.
anyway, there's different ways to approach that.
Yeah, there's so many things.
But so if this was replaced with a belt, right, then we know that it's a fairly long stretch to go down to the 50 armor, and we've now made it so that it's a little bit trickier to get to the 100 armor. So we were looking at this particular area, and also the area where the 225 health bubbles reside, and the area in which they can approach from top, at least get line of sight on the 100 armor. So I think the 100 armor where it is, if you're on this side, you don't have the best visibility of it to know that it's up, right? And if the belt was on that side, then it's going to be relatively easy to get. You can simply run across. So what we think might be an interesting idea is that if you move the 100 armor down to where these vials are, put the vials up in the vent. What that'll do is that if you've taken the belt, you need to commit to drop or take away your height advantage that you have to take the 100 armor. And the player coming around from the 50 armor side, whilst they still have a fair bit of cover or whatnot, they've got to risk it if the other player still wants to utilize their height advantage, the one that would be in control, to take the armor. So I think that would be a nice way to balance out between the 50 armor and the belt, and also the corridor down here, which contains the health. You can have a neat little poking area onto the 100 armor from that position there, if someone was out of control. What are your thoughts on that, Sash?
So what happens here is that, okay, so not only are we going to, so whenever we put the vest here, we're also going to move this lift so that way you don't get immediately connected back to the upper ground. This upper ground should become more exclusive. It needs to be a bit more, like, right now as is, there's a bit too much access to the upper ground. So when you remove that lift, you're removing the you're making more exclusivity within this upper area. And yes, what he was saying was, like, when you get built and you want to rotate here, you have to commit, and that's a good balance of the map. but also when you rotate around here, you have to commit. So it's both a committing action on both sides, and that creates more balance to rotate around. But from here, it's a faster rotation. So you may be able to do a bit more, which makes more sense because that would be a thigh pad here and a vest here, so it's a bit more balanced between the pickups. And not only does putting vest here create a bit more balance around the map, it creates more utility because now this back area right here, as is now, it doesn't have good utility. And what I mean by good utility is that whenever you're out of control on this map as it is, you don't really want to commit to going down there for those health packs. As enticing as it would be, you have to commit all the way in, and there's walls all around you. Being walls all around you, and you're kind of deep into the pit, you can get poked out and damaged a lot. So you effectively lose the 50 HP that you gain immediately because you have to commit so much, and there's so many structures behind you and around you. And what having a vest here does is maybe make more balance into utilizing this area to either get poked out or to rotate around faster. But as is, it doesn't really. As is, that bottom area isn't really effective in the sense that it doesn't benefit both out of control and in control players as much as it benefits out of control players, in control players, I mean. And so whenever you put the vest here, it makes a bit of a different play because it could be a power play, it could be a flanking route, it can be an immediate just rotational power to belt area. So it creates more utility in this bottom area, and it can be utilized for more things than just getting health, which is currently the only reason for it. So I like the move changes that we were thinking about because it brings more utility to the map. And also, we were talking about being a helmet here, right? Or 25 armor in that area.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
That's I think that's an indie. Yeah, I mean, this position, this where the bio rifle is right now, means that I'd consider this to be that area that you want to go on the map when you don't know what the opponent's doing, right? So you want to have one of those areas on each map, which you go to. So maybe top area ASDF would be an example of that, where the vials are. You can sit up there and just wait for a couple of seconds and listen out to where the opponent is. Now, I'm not 100% sure about putting an item there to back it up. I mean, you could have the helmet there maybe to even out, the armor balance through the entire map anyway, because it will take a bit of time and it's a bit of risky to go there. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, okay, so if we get rid of this jump pad and this, that means we're creating exclusivity to here, as in like you can't rotate from here to here unless you go all the way around, you know. So coming in here, I feel like there should be more of a benefit than just a bio rifle or what grenade launcher maybe. Like if we move the link gun to the back area where the grenade launcher is now, we rotate that here. It is a kind of overpowered weapon as it is in the current state, but I feel like it's a better long run option to put a helmet here or 25 armor, because you have to rotate around the entire bend to get to here from that angle. And if you want to get from here from that angle, you'd have to utilize this entire bend around here, get from here to here to here, and then rotate through the vent on the other side. So it's not as beneficial to get here because it's not as easy to get here. See, like on ASDF, when we were talking that top area, the thing about that area is that it's the strongest area of the map, and it creates a bit of an imbalance sometimes because there is 25 vials there, like in total, the accumulation of all the health, which is really strong. And it's also that area where you can just sit there and be safe and kind of just be patient and wait out and react to what your opponent's doing. So you sometimes just create, like with that map, it becomes the strongest point on the map in some parts of the game whenever you need to either be in defensive or offensive state. So in this area, it could be utilized as that, but because it's hard to get here necessarily, like from any angle on the map, it's difficult to rotate around here unless you make an entire bend, unless you make an entire rotation around the map. And I feel like there should be more worth into this part, and I don't think any weapon could really make this area better or stronger unless you use maybe a shock rifle, I guess, because it's always going to be probably the strongest weapon in the game. But the 25 armor makes this a bit more worth, in my opinion.
Yeah, that sounded.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair time to mention the shock ammo on this map.
Well, yeah, but first, before we do that, like now there isn't line of sight. There isn't line of sight between these two armors. So then now you can come here and be more safe, and from there they can be more safe. So it creates a different kind of dynamic between this little slit here, which I don't know if should even be here, but that's something for you to decide or keep or not keep. But as is, like I feel like that takes away line of sight, which creates more balance because now armors are now placed in snug places where people don't have easy and fast access or area control over one another. And what Nance was discussing was shock armor, nice, shock ammo. So up here we have a shock rifle, which is going to be an exclusive weapon because you do have to rotate around. Well, but we are putting it down there. I'm sorry. So it's not going to be. It's going to be an immediate weapon that you can get. My bad. But this ammo is here, right? And then where's the other ammos?
There's the one in the central area right here.
There's one right there, and there's also one.
There's two in the the armor room.
Yeah, and two in here. See, I like the one over there because it gives more reason to rotate back there, and it's strong with rockets and shock, so it gives. So it's a good. Well, I'm stupid, but it's a good move. I like this here, but I feel like this has no purpose to being here and can be replaced with another armor, like link gun armor or some armor. I keep saying armor. it's a new design. Link gun ammo.
There's link gun ammo right here, though. I guess it's up to the author to figure that out.
Well, yeah, it's up to whoever. But like, as is, there's 4 shock ammos, and that's a bit too much on the map, and it creates a little bit too much utility. But I know Mr. H was talking about that being something about just the initial level design and how things process in a beginning process. So you can talk about that more. So.
Yeah. So the when I this is sort of a generalized idea I have is for the first versions of the shells I'll put out is that I will saturate the map with both health and armor, and the reason for that is it's quite hard when the first few iterations of the map to try to figure out exactly where you want those armors to be, the ammo to be. I've now got your disease. I'm sorry, Sass. But health, yeah. The reason why I put lots of health in is that so you can see which are the nicer spots to have it in terms of, having it out of the way, and ditto with ammo. You pick up the sort of the heated areas. I mean, you can theory craft them all you want, but it's not until you play it and you realize exactly where they should be. And people will give feedback on which ones they prefer. Like in this case here, that the shock ammo, which sits in the far side of the 100 armor room, you've got to go out of the way to go get it. But it could be an easy item to pick up anyway if you've just grabbed the shock and you're coming through that upper vent. If it's intentional to have a lot of shock ammo for that reason, I understand it. But these guys can also think there's just too much, because once you start rotating the map and start picking up shock ammo like it is health files, then that will probably be a runaway effect, especially with the shock rifle being so effective in the game.
Yeah, that's you summed it up pretty well. The reason why we're like, if it was maybe like, I don't know, a gun that's weaker with more ammo, then it wouldn't be as much of a problem. We would still say that it's probably a little too much. But the thing about the shock rifle, it's probably always going to be the most powerful gun in the game just by the nature of design of it. And to have that much utility with it around all over the map, it's almost like once you pick up shock and can stay alive, then you can utilize that a little bit too often because you don't really run out of it. You don't really have to run over the item, especially whenever the weapon timers itself are much shorter. In these newer patches, um, it could be a little bit too overwhelming at times for as the way you can utilize all the shock. But again, like that's up to Flick to figure out how he wants to distribute all his ammo and the way he wants to. It's just for that's just one like thing we can really knock on and maybe discuss. And another thing that Nans loves to harp on are these boxes. He's not a supporter of these boxes. He doesn't really find. He feels like they block flow and block utility. See, for me, I agree with him in the sense that this does block flow. Like you're coming up here, you're gonna come from this box as it is designed, but you're gonna typically stay on this side to rotate even faster. You're not gonna go like, oh, let me go up here and do this to flip around. It's just you're gonna typically stay on the same side, and then immediately these boxes are just in the way. You can't really rotate in. Now I think having it entirely open may be a little bit punishing, but like having one box like out more outer edge and like in this middle area to be block line of sight is a decent idea. But to have this as is, it's a little bit annoying, and also it's a bit funny because you can just like go up here, make utility, go up top. Yeah.
Come on, guys, you're not going to jump up on those boxes in a real game.
Well, come on. Have you played Nans? This is Nans' life. No, I'm kidding. But it's just the boxes as is. It's like I just want to know why you put them more than like confused. But the only boxes that I would consider changing are these boxes right here, or this one specifically, so that way you don't have to rotate around. You can just rotate inward, and then it doesn't break flow. That's something that break a little bit of flow. And in this area, it's okay to have more flow because there isn't as much flow in other areas.
Okay, I think we should summarize everything now to finish up.
Yep.
So, as I understand it, the map is the map's supposed to be small in the way that it's played. Sorry, it's too small in the way it's played. Let's just start it again. Cut. So, as I understand it, summarize. Start that again.
It's like a motor that won't start.
Okay. I need to go to dinner soon. So, anyway, so to summarize, we understand that, Flick, that you probably want the map to be a little bigger in the way that it played. And I think the way to do that was to move to some of the items around. Switch the thigh pads up with the belt, remove some of the connectivity options out of that the current belt room, and just to reposition the 100 armor. I think those small little changes alone will change the way the map plays. It'll be a bit more slower because at the moment, right now, it is no bigger than a race. It's actually even smaller, and we know that you want to keep that as your aero walk map. Which it does a fairly good job at right now, but even just culling off a couple of the connectivity options here will vastly improve the ability to show off the map as something that's a little bit larger.
Yeah, I mean, you summarized it pretty well. I mean, whenever you whenever you make this back room have more utility, I bet you the map would be substantially larger. And as it is right now, there's a more inward rotation. There's more to rotate towards inward of the map rather than outward. So what happens is that it makes the map play smaller than it currently is. But if you create more utility just in this back room alone, I bet you it opens up a lot more space towards the map, and then it creates a bigger map, maybe something that you're looking more for instead of what you currently have. So maybe that our suggestions may help that a little bit.